We are starting with this first topic. Here's a question. Should straight actors play gay characters? In an interview with Variety, Kristen Stewart calls this kind of a gray area. She said that she would hate to get a role that requires someone with lived experience to be playing it, but she also admitted that she feels like this can lead to a slippery slope. So, what do we think? Should gay characters be played only by gay people?
I've been trying to work this out in my mind for, I guess, about the last 5 years, ever since Jared Leto played a transgendered person in Millionaire, what it was called, Millionaires Club. I was really worried about, is that a slippery slope or not? Because for me, I have this gut reaction to the idea of, like, I don't want a white person playing an indigenous person. I don't want a white person playing a black person. I get really tense when I see an able-bodied person acting in a wheelchair, but I don't have that same reaction when it comes to sexuality. And I think back, like, remember when John Lithgow played in The World According to Garp? Like, that was an incredible
Yes.
performance. And the idea that we wouldn't have had that performance is really disconcerting. And also, I was with a woman for 20 years. I was with a man for 12 years. So I don't, I consider myself queer. Does that mean I can't play straight or I can only play gay? And I don't think a person should have to be out about their sexuality when they go for an audition. So I don't know if it's right or wrong, but for me, it is very different when we're talking about race and ability than when we're talking about sexual orientation.
I agree with you on that. I believe, that acting is acting, and you cannot say a gay person cannot play a straight person, for example. But considering all that, we also have to make sure that everyone who has always been erased of history be represented, given chances, giving opportunities that everybody else gets. Like, for example, Elton John, the gayest man in the world, the gayest was okay with Taron Egerton, a straight man, playing him. So if Elton was okay with that, I'm okay with that. What I don't like is, like, for example, where that trans people in movies only play trans people. So when you
Mm.
see Eddie,
Mm.
when you see a heterosexual cis man like Eddie Redmayne, him play him like playing a transgender woman, it really upsets me, because how many transgender women are not able to play anything but transgender people. The day that a
Mm.
transgender woman plays a cis woman opposite to Brad Pitt, that day the opportunities are for everybody. But in the meantime, I feel weird about that. And I also feel weird about people playing disabilities, because what if you're doing it wrong and it's an insult to everybody
Hmm.
that has a
Hmm.
disability? Like, but it is a very fine line. Marginalized
Yeah.
people should have availability to play all sort of roles. Like, I have gone to auditions in which they tell me that my accent is too thick, and then a white woman that looks Latina putting on an accent gets the part. So,
Yeah.
like, it's weird. Like, but the world
It's
is not
almost
fair.
like there's
Remember?
like several conversations. Yeah, like, do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like there's two kind of different conversations. We need more diverse representation, no matter, like, no question about it. And we never again should see people who are white playing non-white characters. I think that we're over with that. Same with people who are differently abled. I think you need to hire those people. But it is a really hard line. Recently, the singer Sia was in the news because she has a movie coming out, and I think the character in the movie is autistic, and there was some outrage. And I think that Sia actually did go and seek out someone who was autistic and it didn't work out. So I think there's two conversations. We do need more representation. We do need people who are marginalized to be more present in Hollywood and be given roles. But we also have to accept that life is nuanced and not everyone, like how many people have played the Queen, for example? How many people
Yeah.
actually know what it's like to live as a queen, right? So it's these little tiny lines. Like Lainey, don't you think like these are nuances that people aren't really talking about?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you know what
I
I think
agree. This is a gray area for sure. Go ahead, Martha.
it is. No, for example, Charlize Theron. Charlize, remember the role Monster? You know how many uh, washout blondes who were cosmetically challenged were happy when the breakdown came? Oh, yeah, finally I'm going to be in the movies. No, but they give it to the beautiful girl and they make it ugly. You know what I mean? Those things are not fair. But as for representation, what we need is more stories that we write, that more stories about us, about people that have not traditionally been in movies. But in the other hand, acting is acting. It's very,
I think when it comes to
very
sex, though, I agree with Candy. It's like the love piece is important. Like anyone can. There's a reason why we say love, is that the experience of loving someone, being attracted, having a sexuality, that is a universal. It doesn't matter what kind of body you're attaching that to, right, Lainey?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. And I think that when you're talking about race and people with disabilities, Candy, I think that's a great point of distinction because in many ways, those are characteristics that are visible. And being LGBTQ plus, being gay isn't necessarily visible. So when you're talking about casting, I mean, I always think about Greg Berlanti, who directed the film Love, Simon. uh, he's gay. And of course, he wants more gay representation on screen and in storytelling. But as a director and a member of the Hollywood community, he did an interview where he was like, of course, I want to hire as many LGBTQ plus people as possible. At the same time, it's a tricky thing to ask someone in the audition process. So imagine you're a director, someone comes in to audition for you, and are you going to be like, oh, P.S., are you gay? I mean, that, for instance, is a real tricky line to walk, right? In terms of appropriateness and whatnot,
exactly.
right? These are great conversations to have. The gray area is good because in that gray area, we can keep talking about it and exploring and identifying when is it wrong. It is wrong when Scarlett Johansson plays an Asian woman repeatedly. Like, let's put that
Yeah.
there, no debate. But when is it a little bit tricky? When do we have questions about, when do we have questions about it all? That is when we get to the situation where we don't really know and it's hard to gauge.